The James Show Podcast.
Because this big, beautiful bill passed in the Senate crossed the Rubicon for Elon Musk. He says if this bill becomes law, he's going to start the American Party the next day, which a third party that seems to be predicated on balancing the budget or at least cutting the size of the federal government. And look, as far as the two parties go, Democrats versus Republicans, I think my policy preferences fit in with the Republican Party, capital R, a little bit, but lowercase r, a lot. Do you know what I mean by that? Like the actual party elites, people in the establishment of the party, the people in elected offices. I don't really fit in with them very much. But the people that vote for Team Red, absolutely. We say the same things. We both say we want our full complement of gun rights. We both say we want a balanced budget. We both say we want to reduce the size of government. We both say we want to reduce taxes as much as possible, maybe even eliminate the federal income tax or property taxes here in the homeland in Texas. We like school choice, if not completely eliminating the Department of Education. That's kind of both of our ideals. So I find it very disheartening to see my comrades out there on Team Red being okay with constantly growing government, with constantly increasing spending and increasing the debt limit and growing government. Does no one really want a smaller government? Because I do not register as a Democrat or Republican. I register as libertarian, not because I necessarily think libertarian is the best way to go. It's just I damn sure am not a Democrat, and Republicans are not limited government either. So I'm just want to let you know, if either party wants to balance the budget or reduce the size of the federal government, you have my vote. And so when I was asking you, what would it take for you to support Elon's America Party over the Republicans? I want to hear your list. 800-288-9227, because my list is balance the budget. That's it. A distant number 2 on my list is guns. But if you balance the budget, you already got my vote. And when I say guns, I don't mean the way the Republicans support guns. Definitely not the way the Democrats foresee their gun policy. But I want to strip what little infringements we have on our gun rights. Get rid of the background checks and the database and the serial numbers and the registration and permits and all that. No. Now, neither party really supports me on that front. But here's what I get a lot. Look, Seth already said, for your poll, we've already tried a third party. We saw how that turned out in 2020. If Joe Jorgensen hadn't run in 2020, we probably would have won via Electoral College. She was pulling votes away from Trump in all of important districts. Short answer, a third party is retarded. I'd rather him primary the rhinos out. Sorry, Seth said that, not me. But Seth sent me a Twitter X message, whatever it's called. No. Yeah, we've already tried that. We tried it in 2020. Oh, really? She got less than 3% of the vote. And this isn't what I'm talking about, to where we have just some ceremonial third party that goes out there and, oh, you cost us the election. No, I'm talking about what happened in the 1850s, where half of the country was supposed to be represented by the Whigs, and the Whigs were supposed to be representing their voters in the fact that we need to get rid of slavery. And they always had an excuse. Whether it's the Great Compromise or the Missouri Compromise of 1850, they're always like, yeah, well, we'll just do this now and we'll tackle getting rid of slavery next time. It's just not possible now. We just can't do it. Well, we can't run a third party because then we'll lose and the Democrats will win and we'll never get rid of slavery. At least we can curtail it tell you what, maybe for next time they create a new state out of some of these territories out west, maybe we could block something there. But this is all we can do. And finally, the moral half of America, known as now as Republicans, put their foot down and they said, screw the Whigs. We don't care if it destroys your party. We can't support you anymore. And the Republican Party was born, and 8 years later, they had a president. So, yeah, it's going to be a painful process for the next, 4, maybe 8 years, maybe 2 election cycles. But if at the end of that we can get a balanced budget, don't you think it's worth it? Because when you did win in 2016, did you balance the budget? Or did you blow up the biggest debt and deficits of any American president in a 4-year term? When you won, when you swore off those evil third-party idiots and you won in 2000, what happened? Did you balance the budget, or did you take a balanced budget and grow the debt and deficit, grow government, double the size of the Department of Education, sign in a whole new entitlement with Medicare Part D under George W. Bush? Yeah, hey, we can't do it this time because you're going to let the Democrats win. Well, even if you win, government still grows. Even if you win, they still win. When do the people that want a smaller government get to win? And if the Republicans aren't going to do it or even try and do it, there's only one senator that voted against this in the Republican Party because it grew government. Rand Paul. Rand Paul is the only person that stands for limited government principles in the Senate. All the rest of these guys deserve to get primaried out, Republican and Democrat. Well, what about Ted Cruz? Yeah, Ted Cruz. I'm not happy with him on this vote. I'm not happy with the local representatives around here who went and voted for it. So, no, all you got to do, we need to just put our foot down like we put our foot down on slavery. Stop ceding the election to the Democrats and say, well, this is all we can get now. We can't do a third party or the Democrats will win. Because how did we actually get rid of slavery? Putting our foot down and starting a third party. It was the most monumental, morally correct decision the American people have made in the entire history of our country. This is James in Mesquite. Hey, you're on WBAP. What would it take for you to support the America Party over the Republicans?
I'd like to see lobbyists somehow taken under control, get them out of there some way.
I know how.
How?
Okay, so it depends on what their industry is, but you have education lobbyists, the teachers unions, the people who make textbooks and all kinds of other parasites that go to D.C. and they lobby so they can get the policies of the Department of Education written in their favor. You know how to get rid of every single one of them? Get rid of the Department of Education. That's it. Yep. All of those lobbyists go away. Well, do the same thing for Health and Human Services. Do the same thing for the Department of Transportation. Do the same thing for all of these government agencies that aren't in the Constitution. You get rid of them. All of those lobbyists are gone. All of that power is handed back to maybe the states, if not the people. But that's not in the bill. Yeah,
I agree. And then as far as these bills go, they're so big. They're filled with so much extra stuff. Nobody even knows what's in them.
Good.
And, I mean, the Congress is a big part. The Congress is a big problem with all of it. You got a president, yes, that's great, but the Congress is really the problem. There's too much. They're making too much money. They got too many side deals, and there's too many lobbyists.
All right. So, James, real quick, you want government to be smaller?
Yes, absolutely.
How do you still support the Republicans? I know how you don't support the Democrats, but how do you still support the Republicans?
I don't know. Those guys are professional talkers. They tell us everything we want to see. I guess one way would be to stop watching media and start watching these congressional hearings, start watching what they're actually saying, and nobody does that. We spend our time watching news. We don't watch what they're saying and hold them to what they say they're going to do.
Yeah, well, watching what they say on the floor of the House means nothing. That's all prepared statements, and it's just as theatrical as the news itself. Look at how they vote. That's all. But thank you, James in Mesquite, for chiming in. I'm asking you the same question. What would it take for you to, if Elon makes the America Party, what would it take for him to win you over? My next guest, Preston Brashers from the Heritage Foundation, coming on the James Show. Now, you can go ahead and throw some bucket of water on me if I'm wrong about this, but my primary concern with this bill is inflation, Preston.
Yeah, actually, I disagree with you on that. While I agree with you in principle about the idea of debts and deficits being the principal cause of inflation, what this bill is actually doing, because although you're going to hear a lot about the debt and deficit, the reality is we're not changing the trajectory of the debt and deficit here. If anything, we're actually reducing it relative to the trajectory it's been on over the last few years, because these tax cuts have been in effect for the last 8 years, extending these policies and then throwing in some additional some additional spending cuts alongside that. That shouldn't make inflation worse. So I disagree with you about this stoking additional inflation. But I agree with you on the premise that we will have inflation as a problem going forward if we don't address our long-term debt and deficit problems.
Well, the scoring on this bill even admits that the deficit for next year would go up $270 billion. So I see that as upward pressure on inflation.
Yeah. So is that the Senate version or the House version?
Senate version.
The Senate version. Okay. But the reality is this also has a lot of pro-growth elements to it. We're talking about expensing provisions. We're giving businesses a lot of certainty that they didn't have before. We are cutting spending. We're getting rid of. We're phasing out the Green New Scam. There's work requirements in here that are added in. So there's a lot of good stuff in here. And so I think growing the economy, while I wouldn't necessarily expect this to dramatically reduce inflation, I think compared to some of the things that we've been experiencing in the past and some of the massive influxes of new debt and spending in the previous years, I would not expect to see any significant ramp up in inflation as a result of this bill.
Preston Brashers from Heritage Foundation, do you expect this to get through the conference committee pretty much intact, or do you expect any more big changes out of it?
That's a really good question. So, as you know, it's gone through the House, and now a separate version passed out of the Senate, and now they have to reconcile their differences. And so they can go to conference, or if they want it to just take it directly to the House floor and pass the Senate version as it is, they could do that. My suspicion is that they probably do have a few niggling things that they'll have to work out. And so we'll probably be a few days here, but I think there's a pretty strong urge to get this done. Give businesses some certainty, give people some certainty that their taxes aren't going to be going up. So I wouldn't expect this to be dramatically shifted, but there may be a few things that they need to work out, because the margins are razor thin in both the House and the Senate.
Yeah, who took out the part about guns? I know that's not your bailiwick. You're more of an economics type of guy, but they seem to take out some of the few things that I liked in the big, beautiful bill.
Is that the silencer excise tax?
Yeah, the part about, and a couple of other accessories, but yeah, the suppressors.
Yeah, okay. I have no idea who took that out. I mean, with a bill this size, it's hard to keep track of where everything is being added and subtracted. And there's so many different versions. It's a process, and I understand that people are kind of frustrated and overwhelmed sometimes with the size of these bills. And I don't like it myself either, but unfortunately, this really was kind of the only way to make this happen. I think that you get this bill across to make sure that Americans aren't going to experience a $2,000 per tax filer tax increase next year. So it's a messy process. It's not perfect. They should improve the process, but unfortunately, it can be a little bit hard to track things down, like specific provisions about the silencers and guns in this text.
Well, I appreciate your optimism on the inflation front. I wish I was as optimistic as you, but it's always good to hear the other side. This is Preston Brashers from the Heritage Foundation. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just watch me, because I can be a little doom and gloomy at times. I just feel like we're always losing these battles on trying to make government smaller. And if both parties are for it and you want a smaller government, I just find that so frustrating. Do we ever have the chance to vote for a smaller government? We say that there's people who say they want a smaller government. They get up there, they just grow it. I have a big problem with that. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I have some responses already from the question of what would it take for you to join Elon Musk America's Party, should it come to exist. What would it take to split you away from the Republican Party? President Trump went and visited Alligator Alcatraz this morning, and that place looks fun. That place cracks me up. We got some good audio from his visit, too, but I wanted to share with you some of the response that other listeners like yourself have had in this topic, where Elon Musk has floated the idea of, if the big, beautiful bill passes, he wants to start a new party, the American Party. He also floated the idea of primarying out any Republican who voted for this, which is going to be tough. It's going to be tough because 49 out of 50 senators, Republican senators, voted to pass this. So what are you're gonna primary out 98% of the Republicans in elected office? Okay, that's a bold step. It might just be easier to make a third party. And I've said that all it takes to win my vote over would be to promise to balance the budget. Balance the budget. That's it. Everything else comes secondary. But a lot of people don't agree with that. And I find this interesting because some people act like their allegiance is to the Republican Party and not to America. And I know that's not true. They just sound like it. I know if it got really, really bad that you would dump the Republican Party. I just want you to dig down in your heart and admit where that boundary is. So a Tex Reb from Twitter sent me a message, says, you said you would vote third party if they will eliminate the deficit. What if that was the only thing they did, air quotes, conservative? Would you support a fiscally conservative but everything else Democrat party? That's what concerns me about Elon leading the charge. The answer to that is yes. Yes, fiscal conservative, but everything else socially liberal? Yeah, actually, that's probably closer to libertarian than either one of the parties. That's kind of what I hope for. Not everything else Democrat Party, but what you're really asking for is some of this other weird stuff. Like, would you trade the men and women's sports for a balanced budget? The answer is yes. Yeah, absolutely yes. Men and women's sports doesn't affect my ability to buy groceries. Balancing the budget does. Men and women's sports doesn't cause my bills to go up. Not balancing the budget does. Does that make sense? Like, I don't understand what you turn off. What about abortion? Would you trade? Yes, I would trade abortion for a balanced budget. Yes. It's not a popular thing to say. It's not my preference. But if I had to choose one or the other, it's always going to be balanced budget. And how could everything else be Democrat Party? You know how many programs we would have to cut to get to a balanced budget? That's not a pro-Democrat position. No, absolutely. Absolutely. If that was the only thing they did that was conservative, I would still support it. Now, there's going to be a path too far to where, what if we balance the budget, but everything else is worst case scenario? Okay, it would have to be pretty hellish. I do have a limit. Seth sent me a message. He says, when he said, I'd rather him primary the rhinos out, I responded to him, yeah, that would be 49 of the 50 Republican senators. Doug sent in an email. He said, love your show, James, but you're going to be on an island with this one. Keep on keeping on. I know most people are still going to disagree. That you probably disagree with me, that there's no way I would support Elon's party over Trump. Well, listen, you're not going to be supporting Elon's party over Trump. Trump's not running again. You're going to be supporting the new America's Party that wants to balance the budget, to shrink the size of government for the first time in your life, shrink the size of the federal government. And if all of the things are equal, how could you not support that? How could you still support the Republicans after this? There's not going to be a Trump there. So keep the feedback coming in. I try and be a little graceful in this because it's the easy thing for me to do is just say what I think is going to be popular with the people who listen to WBAP. And yes, I support everything Trump does, and I support the big, beautiful bill no matter what. I just want to get a win for my party and my team, and I just like to stick my thumb in the eye of old Team Blue and the libtards out there. But no, at some point, your principles have to come into play. The thing that is just killing me and my family the most is inflation. I make about the same amount of money I do this year as I did 5 years ago. A little bit more, but not too much. But I have a lower standard of living than I did 5 years ago. You probably do too. Because although my income went up, it didn't go up 25%, but prices did. My paycheck went up a little bit, less than 25% for sure. Probably more than 10%. But Chipotle went up 15%. The grocery store went up 20%. The purchasing power of your dollar declined 25%. So yeah, this is a tough one to admit. This is a tough place to admit. Like, how far would the Republican Party have to go before you'd abandon them? And you know why it's a tough thing to admit? Because the chances are they've already gone past that. You just don't want to give up your team jersey. You have to set a boundary. How bad does their spending have to get? Does $5 trillion in new debt not bother you? Raising the debt ceiling $5 trillion? You're really okay with that? We always have the common topic of how can you save money on your summer vacation? But in this one, we have Alex Gailey from Bankrate coming on to get a little more specific with us and talk about how do you save money on this new thing of short-term rentals. Alex, welcome back to the James Show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So short-term rentals, Airbnb, Vrbo, this is what we're talking about?
That's what we're talking about. I mean, if you're making travel plans and budget is your top priority, we did a recent study at Bankrate that shows popular vacation spots you may want to avoid or just be aware that there are these big markups during certain times of the year. Generally, we found that short-term rental rates are 1.5 to 2 times more expensive in the summertime in many popular vacation spots. 2 of those are Texas destinations, Corpus Christi and South Padre Island, for example.
Yeah, well, South Padre Island is our tropical island here in Texas. I can understand how that would jump up. Okay, so how do you take advantage of that? You just have to go to South Padre in the winter?
So, I think if you're set on going to a popular vacation spot in the summer, I think it's really important to plan and budget far in advance. So if you're just now starting getting to plan, you might want to just pick some lesser known or less popular destinations for this summer and start just thinking ahead for next summer, because those prices do jump for those short-term rental rates and even for hotels. So maybe you skip and you just start budgeting far in advance for next summer so that you can take advantage of these popular spots.
So for this year, it might be too late unless you were thinking about a magical vacation where you're swept away to beautiful Mesquite or something. Just kidding.
Right. That's certainly the case. I think it's a little bit late in the game now to be trying to make reservations and saving money. If budget is your top priority, planning far in advance is going to really work out to your advantage. Setting a budget first, of course, and then kind of deciding what's important on your trip. Again, you can go to some lesser known destinations. Actually, destination dupes have been growing in popularity. This is where maybe you skip those expensive tourist spots and you just choose less crowded, more affordable alternatives. I was looking in Texas in my research and found, for example, you could maybe go to Cap Rock Canyon State Park in Texas instead of the Grand Canyon. That could be a quote unquote dupe, for example, where you could experience the outdoors, see some beautiful nature, but pay less.
Well, the Grand Canyon's just a big ditch anyway, overrated. But so I guess for the Texas version of that, instead of going to Galveston proper, you'd go down to like Jamaica Beach, just further down the island.
Right. That could be an example. I think, again, you could always stay a couple towns over from a popular beach or just a little further out and then be willing to drive to that beach during the day and enjoy the beach. I think flexibility it seems like it's key here for when you're budgeting and trying to save money on travel, being flexible with your dates, being flexible with your destination. You may find that it's cheaper to go during the middle of the week often instead of the weekend. You could also even look into shoulder season. So, for example, if your kids go back into school in August, but if you are able to, you could maybe take a vacation in September when it's still warm outside, but again, not going to be as crowded or as popular as July or August.
Alex Gailey from Bankrate, what is shoulder season?
Shoulder season is just right before or after peak season in popular destinations. So you think about a lot of these national parks or these beaches, you can kind of go in a time of year that's a little bit more of a sweet spot where the weather isn't super cold or super hot, but it's kind of right in the middle and could be a way to save some money and it be more affordable because that's when the crowds are less intense as well.
All right, Alex Gailey from Bankrate, tell people the difference between Airbnb and Vrbo, and do you have a preference?
I mean, they're pretty similar. They're both short-term rental platforms where you can get a short-term vacation home. I really don't have a strong preference between the two personally. I think they're both effective. I think the more options that consumers have to pick from when it comes to accommodations, whether it's short-term rentals or hotels, the better. So more options is typically a better thing for consumers and for travelers.
Alex Gailey from Bankrate, are travel agents still a thing?
I believe they are still a thing. It depends maybe on who you're asking and what age they are. I certainly think that older generations are likely leaning into that more than younger generations, but certainly they're out there and they exist, and that can be an option for you if you feel like you're not good at planning or budgeting these trips.
Well, I'm not good at planning or budgeting, but I never let that stop me. Thank you very much, Alex Gailey from Bankrate. In fact, the Parker system is find out where you want to go, get in your car, start driving that direction, and then look it up on your phone on the way there. If you don't know how to get there, where you're staying or whatever, just as last minute as possible. Probably not recommended by our friends over at Bankrate.
The James Show Podcast.